Welcome to Talk with Kristen with an E, the podcast that's like therapy, but cheaper and way more fun. I'm Kristen, host, storyteller, and occasional overthinker. From making friends to surviving burnout, reminiscing on our younger days, and learning how to adult, we'll chat about all life's lessons and laugh in between. So grab your drink, get comfy, and let's talk it out. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am very excited about today's episode. Today, I have my friend and sister-in-law, Kelly, with us, and we're going to be talking about some really cool things that probably everyone has experienced, and it's about friendship, but it's a different part of friendship. So before we get into that, Kelly, hi, do you want to do a quick intro of who you are or a little bit about you?
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am Kelly and I live in Maine. We moved here a couple of years ago. My husband and I have been married for just over 10 years now. Fun fact, we have lived in 4 different states in those 10 years. We have one son who just turned 7 last week,
Aw.
and I homeschool him and I also work full time remotely. So, yeah, I stay pretty busy, but excited to be here today.
I'm excited you're here too. And I was thinking about 4 states, but for me, mine's been a little bit
Right.
longer. We've been together for almost 20 years now, and we've lived in 3 states. So we're one behind you, but we've also moved around a bit. So that's why this topic will be good.
Yeah. And I always say, yeah, we've lived in all these states and we're not even military.
I know, right? We just
So,
moved just because my husband just wants to go
yeah.
different places. That's how I feel your story goes. But anyways,
Good.
so yeah, guys, if you haven't figured out yet, today the part of friendship we're talking about is long distance friendships. I'm talking about how to develop them, maintain them, keep them there, and also maybe a little bit of what happens if it doesn't work or when it's time for them to fade away. So just long distance friendship is what we're looking at. And sometimes they do work really well and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. But we want to break it down and talk about all of them. Kelly, thinking about your long distance friendships, what are some of the reasons we've talked about the moving? Is that it, or are there other ways that we've developed long distance friendships?
So for me, there's definitely other ways. Moving has been a big part of that, whether it was me moving or a friend moving. I've
Hmm.
experienced both. But I've also developed long distance friendships with people that never actually lived near me to begin with. And most of those developed from my days in MLM companies, which is a whole different episode, but I am thankful for the people that are still in my as a result of those days.
Mine's not MLM, but I was thinking about the friends that I have long distance. A lot of it is from moving. I moved, they moved. Some of them were from college and we never really were going to be in the same place afterwards anyway. But I also have my friend Ariel, who we used to be beauty bloggers together back in like the 2010s. And she and I are still friends to this day. We've never met in real life, but we've been maintaining a friendship over social media, texting, things like that. So it is.
Yeah.
You build your network from wherever. And when the internet came about, there was a different way to meet people too. Being in different companies or organizations, it's a way to meet people. And sometimes you just click with them.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the beauties of social media. I think there's a lot of pain points with it and things that I like less the older I get. But the fact that I have been able to develop and maintain some of these long distance friendships because of social media, relationships that would have never come to be without social media, for that I am very thankful.
So, can you give us some examples of some of the friendships that you have been able to maintain that have been thriving over distance? What are some of those examples that have worked?
Yeah, the very first long distance friendship that I experienced started when I was about 7 or 8 years old. My family had really close friends. At the time, we all lived in Virginia. When I say close friends, I mean we were at their house or they were at ours every single night of the week almost.
They're like practically
Um,
family or like a
Pretty
second
much.
family.
I had their parents, auntie and uncle, and they did the same with my parents. Long story short, their mom was actually from Australia.
Oh, wow.
And they decided back in 2000, 2001, somewhere in there, that they were going to move to Australia back to where she was from. That was actually, it had to be 2000. It was pre 9/11
Okay.
because I remember we got to go to the airport the night that they left, and we actually got to go through security and sit at their gate with them
Oh,
and
wow.
watch them get on the plane. That's a very vivid memory for me as young as I was. That was the start of learning long distance friendships for me. Our families stayed very close through the years and they came back to the States multiple times and visited. And eventually they actually moved back when we were in high school and we just picked back up right where we left off. That was my first experience with long distance. And then it happened to me again when I was in junior high. My bestest friend from kindergarten on up, her family moved away from Virginia to Colorado. And it was devastating. Junior high, really dramatic
Yes.
and hard. That's another vivid memory I have from when I was younger. I remember the day my friend told me that her dad was taking that job in Colorado. And I just remember the devastation that I felt. But we were able to maintain that friendship for several years throughout high school. She came back and visited. I flew to Colorado and visited. We chose the same college and roomed together our freshman year. So we were reunited at that point. Then throughout college, things just changed a little, made different groups of friends and just different life things happen. And so that friendship did eventually grow apart. We do still chat now and then. And I'll always love her and cherish our memories together. That's another talking point I think that we'll get to is just seasons of friendships.
Yes.
So my experience with long distance started young and then it carried throughout my college days and then into adulthood when I got married and started moving around.
I don't know that I have any that early that I remember. Because I'm trying to think, what long distance friendships did I have as a child? We moved, I was born in New Hampshire and we moved to Pennsylvania. At that time, I was still too little to really have any friends in Pennsylvania. I don't think people really came and left as much then. I changed schools
Right.
while not completely long distance. That was a little change of when I would go from one school to a different one and keeping up any of those friendships. And so again, some of them work, some of them didn't. I think a lot of mine were more like college days because you make friends with the people you're living with in college. You always say, "Oh, we're going to keep in touch. It's going to be the same, like nothing ever happened." And I know there's people that are able to do that. I didn't really do that as much, but the college I ended up graduating from, I was only there for 2 years. So I also wonder if part of it was I didn't have as strong of roots with some of those people. My friend Alexis, who we've heard from before, she and I are friends from college and still friends and long distance. And it's been on again, off again. We've always been a little bit in each other's lives, but the past couple years, we've made more of an effort to text regularly or call and catch up, and that's been really nice. When we moved from Virginia to Florida, I had a really good group of girlfriends in Virginia. We kept up for a long time and we're still connected on social media, but I feel like that's not really a connection. Like you see pictures from them every once in a while, but you're not really involved in their life anymore. For me,
Yeah.
it lasted for a little while and then it just fades off. I don't think there's anything
Yeah.
wrong with that. People change and it is hard to keep it up when you're not in somebody's bubble physically close to you in the same city, state, same area. It's just different and harder to keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, what do you think some of the hardest parts are in maintaining the long distance friendship?
For me, in this season of my life, I am still good friends with the friend I mentioned from my childhood. She moved back in high school and then she ended up going back to Australia about 3 years ago. She now is married. And so I think she's there to stay,
Oh,
which really
did she marry
stinks
an
for me.
Australian guy?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
She married someone from there. So I think they're staying put. She does still have family here in the US. Her dad and her brother and sister-in-law and soon to be two nephews are here. She'll be back, but now I'm not in Virginia anymore. So that plays a whole different part into it. We still talk and she's one of those friendships that just doesn't require a lot of upkeep. I don't say that to sound bad, like there's no effort needed, but maybe it's because it started so young. We just have always had that capability of picking back up wherever we left off, and we still have that to this day. And it doesn't matter how much time passes for us that we can just pick up the phone and have a really deep conversation. And so that is a beautiful thing. And when you have those people in your life, cherish that because it
Yeah.
really is rare. It is so rare. And you realize that the older you get. But apart from that friendship, I would say my two closest friends in life both live very far away from me now. My very best friend, we met through ML and we actually met at a conference. Did not really talk a lot at that conference, but then started connecting more through a team page that we had on Facebook and ended up just slowly realizing that we joke we're the same person, like so much so that it scares our husband
Oh,
sometimes.
wow.
And so we just decided a few years ago to meet up in Tennessee. Our husbands had never met. We had only met once. And like I said, didn't talk a lot at that conference,
Mm.
but we met and we shared a cabin in Tennessee and we had the best time.
Oh,
And so we were really forced to grow our friendship in a very authentic way because we never lived near each other. When we met, she was living in Missouri. We were in Virginia. We lived the same life. So the same year, within a few months of each other, her husband decided he wanted to move to Florida where they vacationed every year because he loved it. She said she didn't want to because all of her family and friends were in Missouri
mm,
and Florida was 12 hours away.
yep.
A few months later, my husband decided, hey, I want to move to Maine. And I said, why? All of our family is here.
Yeah.
And Maine is 12 hours away. Long story short, they headed south, we headed north, and now we live 24 hours
Oh
apart.
my.
So that does require effort for
Mhm.
sure. She has 4 kids now. She's a stay-at-home mom. She homeschools. So she stays very busy. I have 1 kid, but I work full time. We're involved in different activities and sports. So we both live very busy lives. And that does require a level of just commitment. But I think when you have, and you will know the friendships that are worth putting in that effort, that is one of those friendships that has come into my life and it's worth all of the efforts and just it's hard and it's a bummer. It's a real bummer to live 24 hours away from
Yeah.
your bestest friend. But there are so many ways to maintain those friendships, and we'll get into that. You're going to know the people that are worth it. And whether that's for a season, because sometimes it is just for a season
Mhm.
and that's okay. And it's hard when those seasons end, whether it's one specific thing that ends it or just natural fading of the friendship. But again, you're going to know the people that you just know when they're there for life. My friend Rachel, who moved back to Australia, that's one of those lifelong friendships, no matter how far apart we are or how little we get to see each other. I found that in my friend page as well.
I love that. And see, I think one of the things you brought up at the beginning too is how the foundation is laid for the friendship. I think the stronger the friendship is to start, the easier, maybe not easier, I don't know what the right word is, the more willing you are to put the work into it to maintain it. What I found in my
Yeah.
life is that a lot of the friends I make are shallow friends. And I don't mean this that they're shallow. I make the friends that, like, oh, we do things with. These are my brunch friends, and these are my shopping friends, and these are my talking about parenting friends. And all my friends are in different buckets, and they never actually get more deep into the people you call at 3 in the morning or the people that you open your soul with of everything that is inside all the insecurities you have. So I think for me, a lot of it is I had these superficial friends. And when I would go to a new place, I would just make no more superficial friends to kind of replace them. And I realize as I'm saying that,
Yeah.
that sounds terrible. The saying has always been friends for a reason, friends for a season, or friends for life. And you've mentioned the season thing a lot. I think that's what happened, whether that's physically or where I am at life. There were certain people that were my friends during that time, and that was fine. I moved either physically or emotionally, and I didn't need to maintain those as much. But the ones that I was able to get through more of just than that superficial level and actually build a foundation of friendship, I think those are the ones that are more likely to be successful in long distance friendships. At least that's what
Yeah.
I've experienced. It's interesting talking about how you guys had those different life experiences, but at the same time, because I think that it bonds people too. When you go through something, there's people that go through a traumatic thing together and they're bonded for life. You see that a lot. I have not been in the military, but I have a lot of friends who have been. And when you go through something like that, it really does bond you together and you have that shared experience, which again lays a stronger foundation, which I believe builds a stronger friendship, a more lasting friendship, regardless of where you are. Even though you and your Missouri, now Florida friend we're still going through those similar things of dealing with your husband's wanting to move and you having to go to a new place and learn new things and develop new local friendships there too. So it's nice when you have those people that you can still go through those things together, strengthens the friendship. But the actual main
Yeah, I think that, like you were saying, when you go through certain things in life, that's going to naturally bond you closer to people. And I think
Mhm.
that's a lot of times maybe why, my story, you said that you didn't keep a lot of close friends from college. And my story is the same. I had really great friends in college that I enjoyed being with. We were close at the time, but looking back, those friendships were just easy. You're
Yep,
literally living in a dorm
get
together
to be
all the
friends.
time, forced proximity. And you're not necessarily going through a lot of life thing. That's not to
Mhm.
say that life doesn't happen in college because it does. You're away from home and you're just caught up in this bubble. That's what college was for me. It was just a bubble. Like life was going on back home, but my life was just the everyday college things.
Mm,
And so when you're walking through those friendships, they're just easy. Obviously, everyone's story is different. And some people probably do go through some really traumatic times in their college days. But I think that for me, at least, and maybe for you, those friendships, most of them just didn't last into like lifelong, meaningful friendships.
mm,
We still have social media connections and
right.
things, people I keep up with that I went to college with, but we didn't go through a lot of real life together. Whereas my friend Rachel, when they moved back in high school, we ended up walking through a lot of life together through loss and
Mhm.
a lot of hard things. And that does just bond you. And then with my friend Paige, even though our friendship was built from the start at a distance, because
Mhm.
that's all we had. We couldn't just grab coffee together and sit and scroll on our phones. Some of those friendships you get together and you're distracted by the things around you. When you're building a friendship long distance, you're forced to just talk. And so that's what happened to us. We talked through a lot of hard life things, not just both of us moving, but a lot of other really hard things that definitely built our friendship and strengthened it. That brings me to another friendship that I don't want to not mention here. It was another friend who I also met through the MLM world several years ago, probably 10 years ago now. She lived in Maine and we would vacation to New England almost every year. It never worked out for us to actually meet up, but we talked very often. We both ended up having our sons within about 3.5 weeks of each other. And so I remember walking through pregnancy together and
Oh.
all of those like first time mom feelings. When my husband decided to move us to Maine, we ended up moving about 20 minutes away from her,
Oh.
but we already had a very solid friendship because it had been built on conversation.
Mhm.
Like with any relationship, communication strengthens those friendships. And that's what happened with us. We were able to do life alongside of each other for about a year and a half. Then I don't know what it is about me and people leaving me for Australia, but her husband is from Australia. He grew up there. They met in college at California. And so he wanted to go back home. They moved to Australia this past September. And we've been navigating a long distance friendship, not for the first time, but
Mhm.
for the first time after getting to do honestly a lot of life together, a
Mm.
year and a half's time. We walked through a lot of things. She walked alongside me through infertility struggles that my husband and I went through and a lot of hard things. Our sons, born 3.5 weeks apart, became
Wow.
the best of friends. I have now had to help my son navigate those feelings, just like I did at the same age
Oh,
when my
wow.
friend moved to Australia. It's very crazy. The parallels, life experiences
Mhm.
definitely strengthen friendships. Not to say that you can't have authentic friendships with people that you haven't experienced really hard things with, but it definitely helps and it changes the entire dynamic.
I think you're right about all of that. I do have a lot of friends that I get coffee with. I love coffee. I love people. It works for me. But again, what's going on at work? How are things at home? We don't get to the deep things,
Yeah.
which is something that I have wanted to do for years. Partly why I started this podcast, so people would talk with me about all their feelings and about mine. I think that you're right. When all you have is the communication with a long distance friend to build that and get to know them, you open yourself up more too because there is some distance there and it gives you a little bit of where
Mhm.
maybe you don't feel as I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you don't feel as open about like you're able to be more open because you're not as self-conscious. There's not somebody just looking at you as you're telling them things. And it reminds
Oh,
me of
absolutely.
we hear about how in World War II the husband would be off and they'd be writing letters to each other. So many great love letters came from that time period. That's what I think of. And that's what I imagine some of these friendships that start as long distance are. Like, it's almost like you're writing letters to each other and really opening up, being vulnerable and sharing what's on your mind. And it leads to that. And I did think when you were talking about how different times in your life bond people, I did think of another examples too. When I was pregnant, I joined one of those first time moms in 2013 Facebook groups or whatever. And I am still friends, using the term friends loosely because we're only at Facebook friends, but we still keep in touch. Our boys were born just a couple weeks apart. We had just talked on Facebook Messenger a couple weeks ago about how it is cool that some of us have stayed connected. The only thing we had in common was that we were all pregnant at the same time. And because we were first time moms, we were going through all of it at the same time. Hey, is this normal? Hey, are you having this
Yeah.
symptom yet? Hey, what about this? What was your glucose test like? What should I expect here? It was a way for us to be in a safe space and all learn together. Now we're all moms and still learning from each other. That's been a fun way.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes distance almost makes it easier to be vulnerable because let's be honest, I think everyone in some way probably struggles with vulnerability in
Mhm.
relationships. Something about being able to open up to someone, knowing that you're not going to see them the next day at work or at the
Yep.
coffee shop or at church. You're not going to have to look them in the eye after just sharing
Right.
something really deeply personal. It is sometimes easier to open up to people in those situations. And I think that's exactly what happened, especially with my best friend Paige. We just started after realizing that we had a lot of similarities and things in common talking about really deep things.
Mhm.
And, that will spill over if by chance you end up getting to do real life with the long distance friends, like I did with Michaela, having built that solid foundation of vulnerability and authentic conversation that spills into real life because that's what you've gotten used to with that person.
It's become familiar. It's what the foundation of the friendship is built on. So it's totally normal than when you are together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are some of the strategies you found that actually work to maintain a long distance friendship?
Sometimes you have to get creative. It can be really tough to be far away. I think of the example of my best friend when they were getting ready to move to Florida. Her husband had to go start his new job, but she broke her arm while doing things around their house, getting it ready to sell. At the time, she had two she had 3, I believe. She had just had her son. So she had a newborn. He was a few months old and broke her arm, the chaos of packing up a house and having to have surgery. It was one of those times where you just feel helpless because you're so far away and you want to do something. And I actually looked at flights to go to Missouri and be there when she had her surgery. But at the time, the flights were expensive. It was really
Mhm.
expensive and it just wasn't doable for me to book a flight last minute, really. And so I'm like, what can I do? And so the only thing I could come up with was I sent them money to get takeout the night that she came home from her surgery.
Oh.
It seems so minor, but you do have to think outside the box. You can't just make a meal and drop it off when they're sick or recovering from surgery or
Right.
whatever the case may be. And those are some of the things that just life happens and that's when you realize this really stinks that we're so far away. Just thinking outside the box, get creative, do what you can. Strategies that we have personally developed include just trying to, and this isn't for every long distance friendship I have. I do have several, some that are more just like we check in here and there. I do
Mhm.
have a handful of long distance friendships that I keep up with and we talk quite regularly. Out of those, there are a couple that are much closer and we make a point to be like, okay, when could we possibly get together again?
Yeah.
Whether that's meeting up in the middle, we did when we went to Tennessee with Paige's family, or last year, she loved me enough to pack up her three children, 33 weeks pregnant, I believe. They packed up and drove to Maine. Her husband was all about it. He wanted to vacation here, and she'd never been. Her grandparents used to live here, so she grew up hearing about it and wanted to see the state. They drove 24 hours to Maine. You have to be willing to put in the work. Sometimes it's really just not doable, but figure out the things you can do and be willing to put the effort in. It's not always going to be convenient, but with the friends that really mean the most to you, you're going to figure out ways to invest in those relationships.
Right, because it's worth it to you. For some of mine, I have found Alexis and I, we would schedule calls because she's got multiple kids too, like you. She homeschools, she's working from home. I work full time outside of the house, and I've got other stuff going on with my son, all of his activities. Sometimes it's hard to pin down a time. It's hard enough getting your real life friends to get together. And then you've got
Right.
time zones too. And then it's okay. So this is my time for your Australia friend. For me and Alexis, it's just an hour one way. You and me, it's an hour
Yeah.
the other way. Time zone math is hard. But what I found is we'll
Yeah.
schedule it so it'll almost be like a date. Okay, so we're going to call at this time at this day. So we're already prepared for it. Whereas just call
Mm.
and then it's not a good time or I'm busy or she's busy. Sometimes those spontaneous calls are still needed and still happen. But we found that scheduling time to talk has been good. And obviously text throughout, like Ariel and I'll usually text throughout the week about whatever we're watching or what we're doing to our nails. Different friendships require different things. Meeting in the middle, Alexis and I have tried to look at like where could we meet together. Ariel and I are going on a book club retreat later this year where we're meeting at a central
Ooh,
location. Very excited about that. We'll share
that's
that on the
fun.
podcast after. It's looking for those ways. And then you've got to factor in expenses and how you're doing it and plan for it. So it's definitely harder, but I think it's exactly like you said that the ones that are worth it, you will make the effort for and you will put the work into it because it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you said that different friendships will require different strategies. Like you were talking about scheduling calls. I do have a friend who lives in another state, and we have had those moments where she's like, "Hey, I want to FaceTime soon. Can we do it on this day at this time?" And we've had to work it out that way. But then
Mhm.
there are other friendships that will allow more spontaneity. I think of an example. So Paige and her, she has three boys now, but her oldest son and Ethan get along. They both love Mario for a while. And again, seasons, right?
Mhm.
For a season, we were scheduling FaceTime playdate.
Oh,
And the
fun.
boys would get on the iPads and they would go to their room and show each other toys and
Mm.
do whatever little boys do. Just get creative. Sometimes it can be fun. You're always going to have that little bit of, ah, if
Right.
only we could grab a coffee. If
If only
only
you
I
were
could just,
closer. If
you have to just make the best of the season you're in. We often joke about when you moved to Maine one day because when they visited, her husband loved it here and was like, I could absolutely live in Maine. So I joke with her often, well, you're going to be my neighbor one day.
just
You're
manifest
going to
it.
come to Maine.
I think you guys should all be like snowbirds together and live in Maine in the summer and fall and then go down to Florida for the winter and spring. I think that's perfect. Sign me up. I will move and live with all of you under that arrangement.
Maybe I could handle Florida in the winter time. That's probably the only time.
Yeah.
Though.
So we've mentioned the seasons thing a lot. So let's talk about that now. Like, how do you recognize when a friendship is drifting apart? versus when it needs effort? Like, how do you know, yeah, it's worth saving this or it's done the course and I'm okay letting this one go?
Yeah, I think that is just different friendship to friendship. There are going to be some friendships that are harder to let go of. Then there are going to be some that just naturally start to fade away. I can think of a couple of examples. When I first finished college, I did maintain those friendships for a little while and tried to text and keep up, but then life happens and you're in different seasons. I got married before most of my college friends did. I was in a whole different season of life at that point. They were still single and meeting up for different things in other states. I can't do that now.
Right.
I have one friendship in particular that we were very close for a long time, long distance. And then I don't know what changed. I think just life was busy and maybe we hadn't built as solid of a foundation as
Mm.
other friendships have. And I think as you get older too, you realize it's okay.
Yeah, like you don't take it
Um,
as personally. I feel like as I'm getting older,
yeah.
it's not that I focus on what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? I think it's just the acceptance, like that's just the way life goes. People are in your
Yeah.
life and then they're not, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes they fade naturally. For me, I
Mhm.
know if I haven't talked to somebody in a while, I almost feel guilty. I'm like, I can't write them now because I haven't written them in 6, 7, 8, whatever months it's been. Oh, they may not want to hear from me anymore, and maybe I should just leave it. And I feel like there's that when things have run its course, it's just that's okay. Like I don't think that it's sometimes it's worth putting the effort in and trying to rekindle it. And sometimes it's just no, that person was a great friend for this period of my life or this season that I was in or this reason that I needed them there for support or I was there for them. And it's moved on. The situation's gone and that's okay.
Yeah. Same thing for me. When I was younger, early 20s, I did overthink and try to figure
Mhm.
out what happened. I just don't do that anymore. And it's really freeing. It's not to say that you just don't care
Mm.
anymore. I have friendships that have stated that I will always care for that person. There are some that I do still from time to time, even if it's only a couple times a year, I'll just send a hey, like, how are you? I hope things are good. I saw XYZ on your Facebook, and they might text back and we exchange a couple of texts, and that's okay. But I do think that it's also okay to have some of those relationships where you maybe don't text even a couple times a year anymore, and that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, because every friendship is different and the needs of the friendship are different, and what you're putting in and getting out can be different too. So, as we're coming towards the close, what is some of the best advice you would give somebody struggling with a long distance friendship?
Again, I just want to reiterate that if you have someone far away, whether it's always been that way or they've recently become a distant friend. If they are someone that you have been able to share a lot of life with and really walk through things, and when I say that, I mean someone who's been there in a way that you've been able to talk with them, not just someone that you see all the time, someone who really is willing to converse and dive into the nitty gritty of life. Don't just let it go because it's so rare. It
Mm.
is so rare to have those people, and even when it's hard, it is so worth knowing that you have someone like that who is just a phone call away. They might not be able to come over and you might not be able to plan fun weekend trips to meet in the middle, but having someone who's a phone call away can make life so much less lonely
Mhm.
than having a whole community of people that live 20 minutes from you that you can't really talk to. Just be willing to put in the effort. Don't underestimate God's ability to provide you with a beautiful community that is nearby. I have experienced that as well since we moved here. My best friend is 24 hours away. One of my closest friends I've ever had is on a whole different continent now. But I have been so blessed with a community here that I've met through various avenues since we moved. I was in a book club when we first moved, and then I've made friendships at church and been introduced to people in some different ways. I might not call those people my best friend, but we have really beautiful friendships and we are able to get together and let our kids hang out and while we just sit and sip on an Olipop and let the
Oh,
kids run around. That's one of my favorite things to do with my friends here. Yes, invest in your long distance friendships, but don't write off the ability to have some really awesome friendships nearby. And that takes work too, just finding those friendships
mhm.
and creating nearby community, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. There's pros and cons to both far away friends and nearby friends, but they are both so important. And being able to maintain those relationships, I think, will give you a more fulfilled friendship feeling when you are able to put the work in and really have it worth it, but still not neglecting the people that are right there near you, too. So, different friends for different times, like we said, for reason, for a season, and forever. So, there's always going to be people coming in and out of your life, and just be accepting of that and make the most of it.
Yeah. And one more thing I would add too is if you have a long distance friend who you are very close with and you start to feel like maybe there's some not
Tension.
distance
Ah.
in between you, don't be afraid to have conversations about that. When it's someone near and dear to your heart, it's worth just saying, "Hey, I know we're both busy and life is crazy right now. I just feel like we're not talking a whole lot." My best friend and I joke that we're very needy friends, but only with each other. It's okay if I don't talk to some of my other friends for a while, but I need you to talk to me, okay?
Mhm.
You get to know each other, their needs, and what each of you needs to feel loved and valued. We've had a conversation like that recently where we had just been in the season after the new year of just really busyness on her end. I jokingly said, "I'm feeling really needy right now. I feel like
Mhm.
we're not talking," and entered it in a joking matter. But we were able to confront that head on and talk about what was going on in life because it is so easy to get caught up in the busyness of what's here and around us that not that you're not thinking about the person, but it can be easy to just get caught up and then be like, "Oh my gosh, like I haven't talked to her since Monday and it's now Saturday."
Mhm.
And it's rare for us to have a week like that. But when we do, we try to make a point of just setting aside a little bit of time to be like, "How are you? What's
Mhm.
been going on?" It's important to have those vulnerable conversations where you just have to say, "Hey, I feel like we need to do a little better. We're not talking like we normally do." Keep the conversation flowing. That's the biggest key is just communication, because really that's all you have when they're far away.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's just like any other relationship in your life. Communication is really the most important part to it. Just make sure you're communicating about your needs, communicating about what you want out of it, and being open and honest. I think those are the keys to a successful long distance friendship.
And I think in our world today with social media, we can sometimes let that become a wall between
Mhm.
friendships. You feel like, "Oh, I saw that they were doing this today. They posted these pictures of the kids and they went here yesterday with their husband." It can be really easy to feel like we know what's going on and feel like we're in the loop and talking to them just because we swiped up on their Instagram story and
Mhm.
said something about it. It's a careful line we have to walk of not letting those little tidbits that are getting shared on social
Mhm.
replace what's really going on behind the scenes. Knowing those friendships that we want to have a lot of deep authenticity and don't let social media replace the real conversations because it's really easy to do.
Great. And I think that's something we'll probably talk about later too, is all the different social media and how it's not real life, and acting like you're a part of somebody's life just because you're seeing what they've got going on their social media doesn't replace actually
Mhm.
being a part of their life. So we'll get
Yeah.
more into that another time, but 100% agree. Thanks, Kelly, so much for coming and talking about long distance friendship. Before we close, do you have any other final comments? Anything you want to share with the listeners?
If you're dealing with time zones, iPhone has the option to add a world clock to
Ooh,
your clock app. I have done that for Australia for they're both of my friends that moved there are both in like the Sydney area, suburbs of Sydney. And so thankfully they're in the same time zone and I'm not having to figure
oh,
out,
that's good. Yeah.
anything super crazy. You can add that world clock. And I learned last night that it's helpful to use that more often. Like, I just know what time it is. I just sit and I think for a second. We actually deal with three different time zones there, depending on 'cause they're heading into winter. And so they're
Right.
about to fall back and we're going to spring forward. It doesn't happen at the same time. So we're always 14, 15, or 16 hours apart,
Hmm.
depending on when it is. In my head, I've been able to keep it pretty straight until last night. I was on Instagram and my friend, she was sharing a bunch of stories. They kept popping up. And I finally messaged her and I said, "Why are you awake?" As soon as I sent it, I had to stop and I'm like, "Oh, because it's 2 p.m. on Sunday there,
Dang.
a.m." In my head, it was 2 a.m. She responded and was like, "It's 2 o'clock and I don't usually take naps."
I know
Oh, right. Yeah.
it is. It's so funny because
So,
I've got some friends in Australia and I joke about how they're living in the future because it is. It's like the 14, 15 hours or whatever. And I'm like, you're already experiencing tomorrow. Like you are living in the future.
yeah. Yeah. My friend's birthday is today, technically, in Australia. So it's
Yes.
Monday there, and she is 30 today. Happy birthday to
Yay.
Michaela. Um, but when I woke up this morning, let me post something on Instagram
Mhm.
about Michaela's birthday, even though for me, her birthday's tomorrow. It's actually
Today for her.
today.
So
So
weird.
weird in my head, but I guess it just means that we get to celebrate her for 2 days.
Yeah.
So, anyway, if you're not dealing with time,
Time zone math is super hard. All right, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
think
Thanks for spending time with me on Talk with Kristen with an E, where it's always cheaper than therapy. If you enjoyed today's chat, don't forget to subscribe. And hey, let's keep these conversations going. You can find me on Instagram at Talk with Kristen with an E. Let me know what's on your mind. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, life is always better when we talk it out.